Okay, guys, welcome to another episode of Over the Shoulder. It's our special edition podcast, the Kwanzaa edition. So for today, we're at day 4 of Kwanzaa. Day 4 of Kwanzaa is Ujamaa. Ujamaa stands for Cooperative Economics. So my special guest that I brought on today is someone who I love, adore. She's like a sister to me. And what's really great about our friendship is that we also intertwine a lot in business. We do very similar things. We have very similar skill sets, and we just cross over and we just help each other out a lot. And that's really the big principle of Ujamaa, just helping out your community through finances. So I call her young adult Oprah because she will be the next Oprah. She 100%. I've claimed it over her life. She has claimed it over her life. It's manifesting as we see it. She is a master interviewer, a master podcaster. She is the GOAT.
Aww.
Neisha Rogers.
Oh my gosh! Ujamaa.
I'm
so excited. Thank you, Enoch, for that amazing introduction. Everything that you just said, ditto. I appreciate you. I'm always just thankful to even be in your sphere of influence because of who you are, your infectious personality, and your loving and giving heart that just goes beyond reach. And so I'm happy to be here, and I love collaborating and working with you, and happy to talk about how we create this, group economics thing that we have going on.
So I love working with you, Neisha. I absolutely love working with you. We're both fire signs, so we always bring the excitement.
Yeah.
It's just always and we'll actually really
but you're
chill.
April.
Yeah, I'm an Aries.
That's a fire sign?
That's a fire sign, yeah. So we're both fire signs.
Oh.
So Leo, Aries. That's partly
Okay.
some of the reasons why we get along so great. But people think of fire signs as very excited, up here. But me and you are both very chill. And we actually deal with the chaos very well. I think one day we were moving your couch and we were on set and we knocked over something. It fell it was glass and crashed and broke. And I'm just oh crap. That's part of your set. This is part of your decor for your podcast.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking you was we're good.
Yeah.
I got another one.
Yeah.
It was just so simple for just dealing with you, whereas most people on set, that would have been World War III, and you would have been okay, I'm not saying anything for the rest of the day. And it was but you're always kind of like that. You just always roll with the punches. Even when something you don't have a backup, it's just it would be, so I always appreciate that about you. And then you're also very candid. So it's always okay, hey, while you did great here, this is where you can improve on. And you say it in a way that's very constructive criticism. It's easy to take criticism from you. And it's okay, because you just want to see me do better and grow. It's not you're my mom yelling at me or something like that.
Yeah.
It's just a friend to friend, this is where you can improve. So I always appreciate that. I like candid people in my life. I do not like yes men, or yes women, or yes people.
Yeah.
Do not like that. I like people who just tell me how it is. If it's great, tell me it's great. If it's not, we got to talk about this.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. That's your personality.
Well, thank you. It took me a long time, most of my life, to actually get it right, to say it right with tact. Because like you said, we're talking, if you're thinking about the signs, Leos have the stigma of being blunt or honest. And I subscribed to that idea and that philosophy for a very long time. So I just thought this is who I am. I'm a Leo. I'm going to just tell you how it is. And so I have experienced a lot of growth. So it's good that you've been able to kind of identify that within me, because I actually have tried to do the actual work with not only, being honest, but being tactful. I have a good insight that God gave me. I think it was was it this year or last year? It might have been the early part of this year. But he had told me to stop being honest off of impulse and start being honest off of impact. Yeah. And so he's you're right in what you're trying to say to people, but you don't always have to tell them off of impulse just because you feel like you have to tell them. So now I kind of look at things and I weigh, okay, this thing that I want to say to this person right now, am I telling them this? Am I being honest off of impulse, or am I being honest off of impact? And so now I have gotten a little bit better at being honest off of the impact of what I'm going to say, how it's going to actually impact somebody. What are they going to do as a result of this information, more so than what it was in the past, which is me just trying to feed a need that I had, just an impulsive, involuntary need to like tell people things. And it's just like, yo, chill. So thank you. I've done the work. I'm getting better. I'm trying to do better and be better. So yeah.
But that's all, like I said, throughout the other podcasts that I've been talking about. It's like, it is about doing the work. So with each of the 7 days, it's a different principle. And what I've discussed with each of the other guests is that like, it is about doing the work. You know, in order to be unified, there's work there. In order to, you know, responsibility, there's work there. In order, you know, for self-determination, there's work there. And so like, none of us are perfect. None of us are going to be there. But it's like, at the end of the day, we forgive imperfections if there's growth.
Right.
You know, like, so who you were 6 months ago should not be exactly who you are this next 6 months.
Yeah.
You know, so 2022, Neisha, who's amazing, should just be a stepping block to 2023.
Absolutely.
Neisha. And like, people appreciate that. So like, you know, again, we've been friends for several years now.
Yeah.
Like each year, like I've seen that level of growth in you, just you becoming just a greater person there. I hope you can say the same thing for me.
No, yeah, I was going to reciprocate that back. It's just like being able to be introspective, kind of, you know, being able to look at yourself from a bird's eye view and take yourself out of yourself and look at how maybe other people are seeing you, how other people are experiencing being around you, and being open to being broken open.
Yeah.
And so looking at the ugly truths, looking at the room for improvement, which, you know, is not an easy thing to do. But once you look at it and then you change it, it's like, oh, God, I love this version of me.
I know for me, this year has been like, it's been the facing my bullshit year. This is like, you know, for so much of my life, I've been pretty humbly spoken. I've been pretty great. So, and it's in like when you're great and you can just kind of keep going off the greatness, you don't necessarily have to face your bullshit, because great things continue to happen to me. But then like this year, great things did happen to me. But in order for me to get to that next level, I had like things inside of me that I had to fix and heal. And so, like I said, it's been a very introspective year. And by introspective, I mean a hard year. Just of facing your bullshit. Like, okay, you're not great here. You know, how can you work here?
What were some of the things that you were like, you are not great? You're just a one.
Just one. I would say communication, and communication when things are hard. So like, I can communicate when things are good. Like I can tell people like, not criticism, but I can tell people like, hey, this is going well. You did good here. But if someone disappointed me, I had a very hard time. I would just like more so like, and I wasn't even doing it consciously, but subconsciously I would distance myself. Instead of like telling them that like, hey, you hurt me, or you in this way. Also, if I'm messing up, I take it so personally. I beat up on myself. So I'll go into my little island, and I wouldn't like reveal to the people who love me that I'm not doing well, okay? So now I try to be like, hey, I set boundaries, and I'd be like, hey, like to the people, like, it's not a good day for me. I'm going through this, like, you know, just letting you know, FYI. And I give people myself. I guess maybe communication and openness. Like, I wanted people to always see me as great, but I've realized that being vulnerable is an even greater greatness.
Absolutely. I would also agree with that as well.
It's been, like I said, it's been a journey. It has definitely been a journey, but
that's a good one.
For me, so that's why like even I love like, well, obviously Kwanzaa comes every year, but every year for me, like I started this is my 3rd year doing like a Kwanzaa celebration with like people I know as opposed to it being my family. And so every year I get to introspectively look at who I was last year, what I did last year, and like see the growth. And it's been growing. Like I said, now people actually come to me as like the Kwanzaa guy. They'll be like, yeah, like I got hit up people like, hey, I want to celebrate Kwanzaa this year. Like, what are some things? I'm like walking them through it. And I'm like, okay, I'm the Kwanzaa guy now.
That is so cool.
It's like you said, it's a lot of growth. In Kwanzaa, I tell people, it's not necessarily about a Christian versus non-Christian thing. It's about the community. It's about how to build community. You know, it's celebrated after Christmas. So you can be Christian, you can be Muslim, you can be in you can be anything that you want to be, and just celebrate, because it's about building the community. So you're having open and honest conversations.
Why do you think people don't know that much about Kwanzaa?
Well, I mean, technically it came about in the 60s. So it's a relatively
new kind of.
But I mean, I think 3 to 4 million people in America celebrate Kwanzaa. So that's pretty good But I mean, it's gonna take time.
Yeah.
You know, the media, like, there are no Kwanzaa. There's like one Kwanzaa song.
Yeah.
There's no Kwanzaa movies. There's like,
That's
you know,
so
we have an Everybody
true.
Hates Chris Kwanzaa episode. We have a Proud Family Kwanzaa episode, and that's it.
And that's it.
So it's like, you know, it's one of those things that has to grow and stuff like that. And I think a lot of people think that, you know, if you're celebrating Kwanzaa, you're like against Christmas. It's like, no, like it starts to 26. So like, I actually tell people that's a perfect miss.
That is.
Because you're like, you have your family, you ate your great food,
Yep.
you have your presents, you're in the presence of love.
That's
And so
true.
now we have conversations about right before the new year of how to like grow that love, make it more sustainable, how to become better. So I tell husbands and wives, every single principle that Kwanzaa represents literally can apply to the husband and wife relationship. It can apply to the friend to friend relationship. It can apply to yourself relationship. So like unity, you have to unify within self. Self-determination, that's your identity. Collective works and responsibility,
Yeah.
to me, that's accountability.
Yeah.
Cooperative economics, are you actually helping out your community? The next day after day is purpose. What is your purpose? The next day after that is creativity. How are you being creative with, you know, your
Yeah.
gifts? And then the last day is faith. So like the last day is like,
Wow.
you know, so faith is everything. It's, you know, because no matter what you do at the end of the day, 99.9% of your life is outside of your hand and control. There's a very
Yeah.
small amount. And so having the faith that things will be okay. So
That's so good.
all of that can be applied to yourself, your
Yeah.
life, your relationships. And I do try to apply all of these because, you know me, I'm big on community and
Yeah.
building a community. So with today, Ujamaa, Cooperative Economics. So when you hear Cooperative Economics, what comes to mind?
Okay, I think about, well, first let's start with the first word.
Cooperative.
Cooperative. I think of a shared, a shared desire. That's what I think of when I hear the word cooperative. When I think of economics, I think of growth. So to think about it and to combine it, I would say that it's a shared desire to grow. And so I love that you had me on here for this episode because that's something that I've kind of I've pride myself on my ability to kind of reach, to be able to reach and extend myself to people to try to connect with them, to connect with other people who have a shared desire to grow. I like being around people, engaging with people who want to elevate. I don't like stagnant. I don't have any friends that are stagnant. And if we do, we're not friends. We just talk every blue moon. So I don't, not to say like, oh my God, I've just transcended everybody, people around me. But no, I do like to put a focus on being around people who have a shared desire to grow, whatever that might be. I just think there's something really cool about elevation and evolution, ultimately becoming a new person and transcending to a greater and higher version of yourself. So that's kind of what I think about. When I think about cooperative economics, I think about a shared desire to grow.
Wow. Like just, that's the first, I've never thought about it in that way. And like, that's so beautiful.
Aww.
Like shared desire. Cause again, you think economics, to me, money comes to
Oh,
the first thing, exchanging of money, but like, what is money? Money is growth. Like you're usually buying something to help you elevate.
Yeah.
And just really don't, wow.
Thank you.
Okay, because coming to my mind, like reason, again, I wanted you particularly for this episode is that we do have like the friendship, but also this business part. We do a lot of business together, like a ton of business.
Absolutely.
And for me this year, at the beginning of the year, I went into partnership mode. So I like partner with different people.
Yeah.
And a lot of them failed. It did not, like, again, as I'm growing and facing my own, like, setting boundaries and stuff like that, a lot of partnerships failed. It got to the point where in like around October, I was like, these partnerships aren't really like working out. Like, it's like I'm doing my work, but then it's not actually a shared mutual thing. And it was like, and I had thought maybe I went into maybe 6 of them.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. They were different.
Okay,
It wasn't like necessarily how me and you were partnering.
Okay.
But just 6 different things where it's like, hey, it's an exchange of services. You're doing this, I'm doing this. And I kind of found that I was doing this and they weren't doing their part. And so for me, it was like, is this the route to go? And then if you got a message about God, impact over impulse, the message that was delivered to me was out of 6 of them, you found one that worked.
Wow.
So it's like, instead of looking at the other 5, look at the one that worked, because from just ours, it's like, I've grown a lot.
Yeah.
So like, forget the other 5. Look at the one, like, cherish that and be grateful for that one. And so like,
good.
so don't give up on partnerships. It's just, things are going to
Yeah,
work
because
sometimes.
you know what? There's somebody there's still the idea that you can say, I have one successful partnership. And some people don't have any. So it's still, it's like, yeah, I agree. Still count it as a success, because it is, even if it's not like what you expected. Just the fact that you're able to say, like, I have one successful partnership, and it's like good, because you would rather learn from the one than have to try to learn from all 6 simultaneously. And so you get the chance to get the fullness out of the lessons that come with partnerships with just the one. And so, yeah, I think that's equally as commendable.
I'm grateful for you and just who you are, and just like it working, because it did not work and I don't want to say, like I said, I do things that was my fault on certain instances, but it was like, I was doing my best to like make it work. Like, I know I was trying the hardest, and like some people they were just over, like, it felt almost like low-key disrespectful. Like, I can say with me, I wasn't disrespecting them, but like I was like, this is low-key disrespectful. Okay, cool. Like, I'm not just coming to you on bullshit. Like, I do things. I have credits by my name. Like, people know my name in these streets a little bit. So it's just like,
talk your talk.
I mean, but the same thing for you. People know Neisha Rogers. Like, they know, like, I meet people all the time. No, don't guess. Like, I mean, maybe I oftentimes don't think we do a good job just sharing people's flowers when they're like not in the room. But like, there's so many times, I've getting Instagram and stuff, and they're like, oh, Neisha? Like, I've seen her podcast clip, or I've this and that. Like, these people you brought on your podcast is like, I've ran into them many times. We maybe have worked together or something like this.
Exactly.
And it's like, everyone always sings your praises. Like, so when you're not in the room, it's like, people have
that's good.
They hold you in high regard, as they should, because you're a queen. So
thank you. I received that. I received those flowers.
So this is the hard part of the podcast.
Okay.
This is the hard question. This is the hard, heavy hitting
can
question.
Can it get more red?
Yeah. You see in post, red. So I've been asking everyone this.
Okay.
So it feels like our generation taking up this mantle of breaking generational curses.
Ooh.
That has like been like, to me, that's a reoccurring theme.
Okay.
Of like, if you're a black person in between the ages of about 22 to about 35, we're all like, we're about to break generational curse. We're not gonna deal with what our parents had to deal with, what our grandparents had to deal with. We are no longer with the shits.
Right.
Like, that's what it feels like. However, when I hear the word generational curses, how you broke down cooperative economics, I think about curse. Curse isn't having a bad day. It means that like it's been a bad season, a bad life. Like, that is not a small thing.
Yes.
And generational means, oh, this curse has been happening centuries. So what makes us the generation that can break these generational curses?
Ooh.
I told you, more red.
That is so good. 2 things. Knowledge and exposure. And I say that because we are also in the age of information, which are, the generations that preceded us were not privy to. So I think that we have the capacity. Now, whether or not we do it, that's another thing. But I do feel like we have the capacity to do it because of the exposure to information. And the awareness of this information. So now I would think that the caveat is the actual action, doing the work to undo something that is so, like when you were describing it, I'm like, oh God, it's, to me now when I hear curse, I'm like, it's like a negative calling on your life. It's like, it's hard to undo. It's too matured. It's a full grown disease or something. It's full grown. So it's hard to kind of like, it's like venom. from Marvel. It's like it just latches on to you and it becomes, it embodies you. So it's hard to undo, but I do think we have the capacity with information, with knowledge and exposure. But that is, man, that's such a hard. But I think I would say I'm on the side of the line that yes, we can break generational curses. Yeah.
Yes.
And then obviously to me, because I'm a Christian, I'm gonna have to incorporate this quote that I say, do what you can and God will do what you can't. And so I can only get me so far, but I do think because a curse is a negative spiritual thing. I think to the contrary, you would also need a positive spiritual thing to combat that negative spiritual element. And so I would attest that you would also need God to help you break these generational curses. You would need a supernatural spiritual hand to help you mend this issue.
All fair. I know for me, I actually started thinking about generational curses around 2017. Why I started 2017, because for me, I started thinking about becoming a father. I do not have kids, never had any kids, but I started thinking about am I ready to be a father? No woman in the picture, but just think about, am I ready to be a father?
Fatherhood, yeah.
And for me, what I started thinking about is when I started thinking about fatherhood is what can I teach, my children, but also what am I going to pass down to my children? And we think about, money, wealth, all that kind of stuff. But to me, you also pass down your bullshit. So
Absolutely.
It's so if I don't want my kids to have my bullshit, I have to defeat it.
Yes.
I have to get rid of it.
Yes.
And so for me, that was probably one of the first big major times I was okay, introspect, go into self and all that kind of stuff. And when I did go into self, that's where God met me. He met me in terms of, okay, you want to face it? Here's a mirror. This is you naked. This is who you are. And when, like I said, from me, 2017 to now, facing a lot of battles, doing all this kind of stuff, I've seen my growth just skyrocket. It's because I'm always trying to grow. I never want to stop growing. I want to be 82 years old, still getting better.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the goal for me. And I don't want my children to have to face this. So that became, okay, so I'm going to break what my parents couldn't break, what their parents couldn't break, what their parents couldn't break. And I want my children to have a whole new list of things that they're facing. None of this stuff, it seems like we've been facing the same thing for
You got that generational curse too?
You got that? You got it? Oh man, yeah, woo!
Right,
woo.
It's sad.
It is sad. So it's I want it to be new stuff. We're in 2022, about to be in 2023.
I'm curious though, how does it actually work? The passing down of generational curses. Is it genetic? Is it habitual? What? How does the actual passing of it work?
It's for me, how I would answer that, it's the nature versus nurture argument. So there is a thing called post-traumatic, don't get me wrong, it's post-generational traumatic stress. So meaning that you can pass stress down generationally.
But how?
So through your genetics, if
you can. Okay, so genetic.
Okay. So you can. So if you go to you have to think what we went through in slavery, we were passing that down.
Yes.
Because we're going through this otherworldly stress level.
Yes.
And then it's just habitual. There's an analogy of someone has said that they made a pot roast. And they always cut off the edges of the pot roast. So this woman, she cut off the edges of the pot roast. She always did it. And the husband's why do you cut off the edges? And she's because my mom cut off the edges. And she was I just always assumed that the edges weren't a good part. He was I think I like the edges.
Yeah.
And so she asked her mom, she was why do you cut off the edges? And she said, because my mom cut off the edges.
Wow.
So she went to her grandmother. She said, why do you cut off the edges? And the grandmother said, oh, well, I had this square pot pan and I couldn't fit a whole pot roast in. So I just cut off the edges to make it fit. And it's just she unknowingly taught her daughter that, which then she taught her daughter that. And it's just you've been wasting pot roast.
Wow.
Because this person had to, and you just never explained. So for me, how you break generational curses is introspection and communication. You have to talk. We have to have these conversations.
That's so good.
Like, we have to talk about it. Like, no one's gonna fix our community outside of our community.
Yes.
It's only us.
Yes.
So we have to talk. So like the fact that we're always fighting, have a conversation. You disagree, have a conversation about it. Like, just talk. Just talk it through.
Good.
Like, and just see where it goes. So talk, level-headed. It's not about being right or wrong. It's about growing in this situation, because everyone has a viewpoint. Everyone's going through something. Everyone has their own narrative and their own story.
Yeah.
We're the stars in our own film. And so it's like, watch someone else's film and maybe you can start feeling a little sympathetic towards what their character is going through. Whether the character is right or wrong, it's like you can understand why they're choosing to move that way. But that's through communication. That's trying to see someone else's story.
Yeah.
And that's what we don't. We always want to see our story. Like, well, I was going through this day. And it's like, yes, you were.
Yep.
But I'm seeing your story. Okay, now I also was going through this day. And I had said it on an earlier podcast of that hard times reveal character. So like when you're going through something and you are a certain type of way, that's really who you actually are. Like, even through hard times, I'm still a really nice guy because I'm naturally a nice person. I'm naturally generous. I naturally hold out my hands. Even when my cup is sometimes running on empty, I'm still trying to pour and fill someone else's cup.
So true, which is not, you should not be doing that.
I shouldn't, but that's who I am. Like, I'm a generous person. So during hard times, I'm still that person. I don't just pull back my generosity because I don't necessarily have generosity to give. I find another way to be generous.
That's so good. Oh my gosh, that's so insightful. This year was the first year that I was able to actually identify things as generational curses. And so that has been exciting for me. I know it's like not, I mean, it's not exciting.
It's exciting to learn.
But it's exciting to know, like, because that's what I'm saying with the awareness. You know, if you don't know something exists, then you can't change it. So that's why I think we have the capacity to break them if we have the awareness that they exist. And so now that I'm like, okay, great, I have the awareness. And then now the second step would be finding the information and figure out how to dismantle it. And you get the information from doing things like this podcast, listening to your, methods and the insight that you just shared about how you plan on dismantling generational curses for you is like, oh gosh, it's like, okay, I'm one step closer to being able to become my freest self. So yeah.
Oh, Neisha Rogers, you actually transformed this podcast, this episode, based upon your definition of Ujamaa. So at first, again, I told you I was thinking money.
Yeah.
But when you went shared growth, I was like, so let's talk about growth. And that's really every single thing that we talk. So you literally changed how this podcast was going to go.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, but that's
shared desire to grow.
Shared desire to grow. And that's a beautiful way of looking. Honestly, now I'm going to start looking at economics as growth.
Okay.
Because that makes it a little less capitalistic. And we don't like capitalism.
Yeah, well, actually, I didn't think about, I knew that I was coming on for this topic, but I hadn't consciously thought about what the actual definition or the actual word meant to me until you just asked me. So that was like an authentic answer.
It was.
And I'm like, oh, wow, that's so cool. Yeah.
Amazing.
So I'm sorry, what was your question?
Oh, I didn't have a question. I was just saying, Leah, I was wrapping up the podcast, As you can see, we are 100% friends.
Yes.
But I thank you for coming on, sharing the conversation, lending your time.
Yes.
Just
I have to. Like, Ujamaa, you help me, I help you. Like, Enoch has been taping like 85%, maybe even more of my podcast for me. And so I'm very appreciative of him. And so when he's like, Nish, can you, want to come on and talk about this? I'm like, absolutely. Like, I don't even know what you're asking. Where? What time?
What time?
So yeah, I'm very, very thankful as well.
We're thankful for each other. It's been great, our continued growth of friendship and partnership over the years. And I just look forward to what next year is going to bring for us.
Yes, sir.
To everyone, Ujamaa. Cooperative Economics, or a shared desire to grow.
Yes.
Quoted from Neisha Rogers. As always, what I'm going to say on this podcast, that's a wrap.